Imagine being adored by millions, having the world at your feet, and still feeling invisible. Karen Carpenter, the voice behind some of the most iconic songs of the 70s, seemed to have it all. But in the shadows, she was battling a silent killer. What really caused the tragic death of this beloved star? The truth is far darker than anyone could have ever imagined. Stick with us as we uncover the shocking reality behind Karen Carpenter's untold story. Karen Carpenter, the celebrated singer behind some of the most iconic hits of the 70s, was found dead at just 32 years old, sending shockwaves through the entertainment world. The initial reports claimed she had suffered a heart attack, an unexpected tragedy that left both fans and family members in deep sorrow. However, the true story behind her death was far more complex than the public could have ever imagined. For years, Karen had been silently battling a relentless and deadly condition, anorexia nervosa. Her struggle with body image was something she had kept hidden from the public eye, and as a result, the damage to her body had been quietly accumulating. The official cause of death was labeled as heart failure, but the autopsy report, released weeks after her passing, painted a far darker picture. It wasn't just heart failure. It was the culmination of years of severe malnutrition, substance abuse, and psychological trauma. Karen's body, though still young, had been slowly deteriorating from within. The reality of her death was far more tragic than anyone could have imagined, and as the truth started to surface, it raised many questions about the pressures she faced in her personal and professional life. The autopsy report revealed a haunting truth that had remained hidden for years. Karen Carpenter's death was not simply a sudden heart attack, but the result of a long and tragic battle with anorexia nervosa, compounded by her secret use of emetine, a substance used to induce vomiting. For years, Karen had been silently destroying her body in ways that no one around her could detect. The pressure to maintain the perfect image had taken a devastating toll, and the public, who adored her for her flawless persona, had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. At the time of her death, Karen weighed just 108 pounds, a figure that seemed like a slight improvement from the 77 pounds she had weighed the year before. But appearances were deceiving. Despite her outwardly slim figure, Karen was suffering from extreme malnutrition. Doctors noted that her stomach contained no solid food, only a strange dark green substance that resembled crushed leaves, a clear indication of severe starvation. Her body had begun to fail her in unimaginable ways. Her digestive system was nearly non-functional. Her liver had softened, and her pancreas had shriveled. Her blood sugar levels were sky-high, 10 times the normal rate, indicating a severe metabolic disorder. Most alarmingly, her potassium levels had dropped to a dangerously low 1.8 mql, a figure so critical that it was almost certain to cause a cardiac arrhythmia. This, doctors concluded, was one of the direct causes of her fatal heart attack. Despite this, the autopsy revealed that Karen had not been taking prescription drugs or narcotics. Instead, the toxic substance found in her system was emetine, a drug she had been using for years in an attempt to control her weight. This substance, used to induce vomiting, had caused irreversible damage to her heart muscle. It was the silent killer, gradually weakening her body until it could no longer recover. For the public, Karen Carpenter was the picture of elegance, graceful, poised, and effortlessly perfect. But beneath the surface, a different reality was unfolding. As her fame grew, so did the pressure to maintain a certain image. Karen's appearance became a focal point of her career. She was no longer just a singer. She was a symbol of the perfect woman, the epitome of beauty in the eyes of the media and her fans. But the more she tried to live up to this ideal, the more it tore her apart. From the outside, it seemed as though she had everything under control. She was talented, loved by millions, and adored for her angelic voice. But within the confines of her own mind and body, Karen was slowly losing the battle against her demons. As she became more and more focused on her weight, the destructive habits took hold, restricting her food intake, relying on laxatives, and exercising obsessively to maintain a figure that matched the public's expectations. The music industry, which had once embraced her for her extraordinary talent, now demanded more perfection, more beauty, and ultimately, more sacrifice. The pressure to maintain a flawless appearance, particularly in an era when the music industry placed such heavy emphasis on looks, was overwhelming. It wasn't just about the music anymore. Karen's worth seemed to be tied to how she looked, how thin she could be, and how well she could fit into the mold the public had created for her. Her struggle wasn't just with food or weight, it was with the crushing weight of expectation. She was trying to survive in an industry that had little understanding of mental health issues, let alone the severity of eating disorders. Her body began to break down, yet no one seemed to notice. To the public, she was still the star, the perfect image of what a female artist should be. But behind the scenes, Karen was fighting a battle that no one could see, and it would ultimately cost her everything. While Karen's professional life was spiraling due to the immense pressure of maintaining her public image, her personal life was unraveling as well. In 1980, Karen married Thomas Burrus, a real estate broker, hoping to build the family life she so desperately longed for. But the marriage quickly began to crumble under the weight of secrets and unmet expectations. The cracks in the relationship deepened when Burrus revealed that he had been sterilized, unable to have children. Something Karen, who had always dreamed of being a mother, didn't know before the wedding. This devastating revelation, combined with the growing emotional strain between them, led to their separation after just over a year. The collapse of Karen's marriage came at a time when she was already emotionally fragile, and the toll it took on her was profound. Close friends of Karen's later confirmed that the emotional distress she experienced during this time was a key factor in her increasing despair. Despite her fame and the adoration of millions, Karen felt increasingly isolated, trapped in a life that didn't align with her dreams. This period of turmoil marked a significant shift in Karen's mental state. She became more withdrawn, her struggles with anorexia and self-image worsening, and she began to acknowledge that she needed help. It was during this time that she reached out to Cherry Boone, a friend who had previously battled anorexia and emerged victorious. Boone referred Karen to a therapist, Stephen Levenron, in New York, where Karen hoped to start the long road to recovery. However, the emotional damage caused by her marriage, combined with the isolation she felt, would prove to be an almost insurmountable hurdle. Even as she sought help, Karen's battle against her eating disorder continued in secret, and the toll it took on her body only deepened. In 1982, Karen took a brave step toward recovery, seeking professional help in New York. She moved into a luxurious suite at the Regency Hotel, where she began therapy with Stephen Levenron, a therapist specializing in attachment therapy. This method aimed to help Karen rebuild her self-esteem and heal from the deep emotional wounds that had festered for years. Levenron worked with Karen 5 days a week, using his approach to form a bond that could serve as a healing connection. Karen was hopeful, showing signs of surrender and optimism, even giving Levenron a hand-embroidered gift as a sign of trust and hope for salvation. But behind the therapeutic efforts, Karen's struggles continued to manifest in dangerous ways. While Levenron tried to guide her toward healthier eating habits, Karen's behavior told a different story. She continued to hide her ongoing use of emetine, the drug that she had been taking for years to induce vomiting. In addition, she secretly relied on a variety of other substances, laxatives, thyroid hormones, and excessive exercise, all aimed at controlling her weight and appeasing the constant voice in her head that demanded perfection. Despite the therapy sessions, Karen's condition never truly improved. On the surface, she gained a bit of weight, but it was only through intravenous nutrition. Her organs, weakened by years of abuse, no longer functioned properly, and her body was no longer capable of self-regulating. Karen was caught in a cycle of deception, lying to her doctors about her continued use of harmful substances, and even hiding her true condition from those closest to her. The truth about her self-destructive behaviors was a well-kept secret, even during the very treatment meant to help her. While Karen was trying to recover, the damage she had done to her body was already irreversible, and the effects of her ongoing deception made her recovery progress almost futile. Karen Carpenter's final days were marked by a tragic irony. On the surface, it seemed like she was turning a corner, but beneath it all, her body was too broken to recover. In late 1982, after a brief period of weight gain and treatment, Karen returned to Los Angeles, claiming that she was ready to re-enter the world she had once dominated. She met with her brother Richard to discuss a possible reunion, attended a Grammy event, and even took a rare photo in which she looked vibrant, laughing, and alive. But even as she put on a brave face, the reality was far more somber. Those who saw Karen in the final weeks of her life had mixed emotions. Some saw her as upbeat and energetic, while others noted her growing frailty. Her voice was softer, her gait slower, and the radiant energy that had once been her trademark now seemed to fade. But Karen, ever the perfectionist, insisted she was recovering. She told friends, "I'm getting through this. I'm winning." It was a declaration of hope and strength, yet one that was ultimately misplaced. On February 3, 1983, Karen visited a hair salon, discussing her future plans with friends and even booking an audition for March. The following morning, she woke early, getting ready for the day, but something went terribly wrong. She collapsed in her closet, her mother finding her unconscious, her heart beating dangerously slowly. She was rushed to Downey Memorial Hospital, but it was too late. Karen, the woman who had captivated the world with her voice, was gone. In the end, Karen Carpenter's efforts to rebuild her life came too late. Her body, ravaged by years of self-destruction, was beyond repair. The damage, both physical and emotional, had been done, and her death was the heartbreaking culmination of a long, silent tragedy that had been unfolding for far too long. When Karen Carpenter passed away, the media initially focused on the shock of her sudden death, calling it a tragic heart attack and celebrating her musical achievements. But as the weeks passed and the details of her autopsy were released, a more disturbing reality began to emerge. The public was shocked to learn that Karen's death was not the result of a sudden heart attack, but the culmination of years of anorexia nervosa, malnutrition, and the toxic effects of emetine, a substance she had used to induce vomiting in her ongoing battle with weight control. Despite the truth emerging from the autopsy report, many, including her family, continued to silence the conversation surrounding her illness. Her mother, Agnes Carpenter, refused to acknowledge the severity of Karen's condition. She maintained that Karen's problems were simply a matter of poor eating habits and could be corrected with willpower. Agnes's refusal to accept the truth about Karen's mental health struggles became a point of contention, especially after Karen's death. While some fans and critics blamed the music industry for pushing Karen to maintain a flawless, but ultimately unattainable image, others pointed fingers at her family for failing to intervene in a more effective way. The tension over how Karen's illness was handled remained a source of division within the public discourse. The controversy reached its peak when Richard Carpenter, Karen's brother and musical collaborator, took control of the narrative, carefully managing the public's perception of her life and death. In 1989, a made-for-TV movie about Karen's life, The Karen Carpenter Story, was released. While it brought her story to a wider audience, many felt the portrayal was incomplete. Key details about the pressure from their mother, Karen's struggle with her disorder, and the emotional toll of the family's dynamics were either downplayed or entirely omitted. The movie even fabricated a scene where Agnes embraces Karen and says, "I love you," a moment that had never occurred in real life. The fictionalized scene sparked outrage among those who knew the family personally and felt it misrepresented the real emotional distance that existed between Karen and her mother. Furthermore, Stephen Levinron, the therapist who treated Karen, faced criticism for his failure to detect the full extent of her self-medication during therapy. Despite being Karen's primary therapist, Levinron never noticed the signs of her continued use of emetine and other substances. His failure to thoroughly monitor her treatment process contributed to the irreversible damage that led to her death, leaving many to question the ethical responsibility of medical professionals in such cases. The public's understanding of Karen's death was incomplete for years, largely due to the secrecy and denial surrounding the real causes of her condition. The media's initial focus on her heart attack obscured the far more complex, tragic story of mental health and eating disorders. It wasn't until the release of biographies and documentaries years later that the true extent of her suffering began to surface. It took years for the full story of Karen Carpenter's struggle to come to light. In the years following her death, the media and public began to slowly unravel the complexities behind her tragic demise. Initially, the media focused on her sudden heart attack, largely overlooking the role that anorexia nervosa and self-medication had played in her death. However, as time passed, books, documentaries, and interviews with those close to Karen started to fill in the gaps that had been ignored for so long. Randy Schmidt's biography, Little Girl Blue, published in 2009, revealed shocking new details about Karen's personal life, including her strained relationship with her mother and the emotional neglect she endured growing up. Schmidt's work highlighted how Karen felt erased within her own family, overshadowed by her brother Richard's success and their mother's unyielding focus on him as a musical genius. This emotional isolation, combined with the pressures of fame, fueled Karen's descent into anorexia. In 2023, another book, Lead Sister, further exposed the truth about Karen's treatment during her recovery. It became clear that Karen was not properly supervised by a medical professional as she struggled with her eating disorder. Her treatment, which initially seemed to offer hope, was ultimately ineffective, not because of Karen's lack of will, but because of systemic failures and a lack of proper care and monitoring. The truth about Karen's struggles with eating disorders, emetine abuse, and the lack of proper medical intervention gradually shifted public perception. No longer could the narrative solely focus on her heart attack as the cause of death. Instead, people began to understand that Karen's death was the result of a much larger and more complex issue, a combination of physical, emotional, and societal pressures that she had been unable to escape. This gradual revelation changed how people viewed Karen's life and legacy. Her death was no longer just a tragic end to a promising career, but a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked eating disorders, the pressures of fame, and the deep-seated issues in the music industry's treatment of female artists. Karen Carpenter's tragic story remains one of the most haunting in entertainment history. Her death at such a young age was not just the loss of a talented singer, but the end of a quiet struggle with mental health that the world only began to understand long after her passing. In the years following her death, her story became a symbol for the dangers of eating disorders, the pressures faced by female celebrities, and the lack of support for those battling hidden mental health issues. Karen's legacy, however, goes beyond her musical achievements. She became a figurehead for those who feel invisible or unheard in their struggles. Her story is a stark reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and the need for better care and understanding, especially for those in the spotlight. While the music industry and the media played a significant role in shaping the narrative of her life, it is only in the decades since her death that the full scope of Karen's personal battles has been brought to light. Books, documentaries, and interviews have slowly peeled back the layers of her story, revealing a woman caught in the painful pursuit of perfection, struggling with deep emotional wounds that went untreated for far too long. Karen Carpenter's life, and the way it was both publicly and privately shaped, continues to prompt important conversations about the treatment of women in the entertainment industry, the dangers of perfectionism, and the pressing need for compassion toward those suffering in silence. Her legacy is a reminder that the true cost of fame and beauty can be devastating if left unchecked, and that mental health, especially within the high-pressure environment of stardom, is far too often neglected. As we reflect on her life and the lessons learned from her story, we must continue to shed light on the issues that she and countless others faced. Karen Carpenter's death was tragic, but her story has opened the door for vital conversations that continue to resonate with us today. The story of Karen Carpenter's life and death is one that lingers in the hearts of many. It's a tale of raw talent, immense pressure, and the quiet devastation of mental health struggles that went unseen for far too long. Karen's death was not just the loss of a beloved celebrity. It was a tragic reminder of how the weight of public expectation can silently destroy someone from the inside out. For decades, the world believed her death was the result of a sudden heart attack, a fate that many thought befell her without warning. But as the truth came to light, through autopsy reports, biographies, and documentaries, the tragic complexity of Karen's life became undeniable. Anorexia, substance abuse, and emotional trauma were the hidden forces behind her collapse, pushing her body to the brink until it could no longer recover. Her story is not just about the pressures of fame or the relentless scrutiny of the entertainment industry. It's about the dangers of perfectionism, the need for compassion, and the importance of understanding the mental health struggles that many still face in silence today. Karen Carpenter's legacy is not just in her music, but in the conversations she sparked about the damaging effects of societal standards on women and the overlooked dangers of eating disorders. As we reflect on Karen's life, let it serve as a reminder to care for one another, to be aware of the silent struggles around us, and to never forget that behind every public image is a person with hopes, dreams, and vulnerabilities. If you found Karen's story thought-provoking, please like and share this video to spread awareness. What do you think about what happened to Karen Carpenter? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're interested in uncovering more untold stories behind the spotlight, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content.